Something is missing in modern dog training, and it's not a tool or a technique, it's an emotional state that we have learned to avoid, which is frustration, not fear nor panic, but that vital tension between confusion and clarity, that pause where the dog doesn't know what to do but stays engaged anyways, and unfortunately, that's also where a big part of a dog's growth happens. We've built a culture where every session must feel smooth. But when training becomes too easy, it stops being real. The dog doesn't learn to cope with uncertainty, he learns to wait. For help, for hints, for rescue. Frustration tolerance isn't cruelty, it's preparation. Controlled stress applied with purpose teaches a dog to persist, to adapt, to think. Yet, many methods treat any sign of struggle as failure. The moment confusion appears, we simplify. And so we raise dogs that thrive under structure but crumble under pressure. A solid dog isn't built on endless praise or flawless flow. He's forged in moments where quitting was an option, but he didn't take it. That only happens when we stop rushing to protect the dog from discomfort and start giving him the space to rise above it. What we're avoiding isn't suffering, it's resilience, and that's a far greater loss. So what's the way forward? Well, it starts with accepting that struggle isn't a flaw in training, it's a feature. The dog doesn't need perfect clarity in every step. He needs enough challenge to feel the weight of effort. That weight gives behavior meaning. A dog that goes through training might know cues, but he won't know how to hold them when things get messy. What we want isn't surface level obedience, it's depth, presence, a dog that doesn't just follow but understands. And that kind of understanding is born in the space where most handlers intervene, right in the middle of uncertainty. That's where we stay quiet. That's where the dog learns to think. That's where strength is built. But let's be careful. Frustration has to be used with care. It's not something you impose on every session. It's a tool, one that demands timing and a deep understanding of the dog. When the dog knows the behavior, frustration becomes a powerful ally. That's when you can raise expectations, hold back reinforcement, or let him sit in the problem a little longer. That tension teaches him to own the work. It's crucial when building reliability, when rewards are delayed, when distractions are real, when the handler offers no hints. That's when commitment is formed. Even in the early stages of learning, small frustration doses can help, but only if the dog has the emotional foundation to carry it. A moment of uncertainty can spark effort, but with insecure or unstable dogs, or when the relationship is still forming, frustration has no place. It doesn't teach, it unsettles. There's a fine line between productive pressure and emotional overload, and it's up to the trainer to read it precisely, to know when frustration is sharpening the mind and when it's starting to fracture it, because once it peaks, motivation collapses, engagement fades, and the dog leaves the work. Frustration isn't about making things hard, it's about making them matter, and knowing when to pull back is just as important as knowing when to lean in. A dog that learns his mind is the key to his problems becomes something rare. He doesn't wait for answers, he doesn't panic in uncertainty, he leans into it. When pressure rises, he checks in instead of checking out. He begins to understand that stress is not danger, it's direction. A challenge to solve, not something to avoid. And what's even more powerful is that he channels that effort not against the trainer, but with him. Not for fear, not just for the reward, but because he's invested. He wants to solve it, he wants to stay in the work. That kind of dog doesn't just perform, he carries the weight. He becomes reliable, present, and mentally resilient. And whether you like it or not, none of that comes from silencing the struggle. It comes from moving through it, with his mind switched on. So in the end, it's not about adding pressure, it's about to let the right kind of pressure to exist, not to crush the dog, but to shape him. The kind of dog that can hold the line when it counts doesn't come from comfort. He comes from tension handled well, but he doesn't build that alone. He builds it because someone stood beside him who knew when to intervene and when to let silence teach. That's the responsibility. Not just to guide the dog, but to prepare him for a world that won't hand him answers in every situation. A world that demands thought over reaction. That kind of dog isn't born, he is made by those willing to stop getting in the way of his strength. Now, if you like this type of content, please make sure to subscribe. There's a lot more coming, and I would absolutely love to have you on this journey. See you in the next one.